Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to listen to the talks today. My name is Ruth. In my presentation, I am addressing issues with censorship, freedom of expression, and controversy around nudity. The work I will be discussing is by Betty Tompkins, an inspirational second-wave feminist artist who believed that the human body was beautiful and worthy of being the subject of artwork. I believe that the true aim of art is to spark uncomfortable and potentially disruptive conversations that bring about positive change. Debates about whether or not I can show you Betty Tompkins' work have broken out at many levels of the National Gallery. Her pieces, cunt painting, fuck painting, and girl-on-girl painting have been said to be controversial. Betty Tompkins' work is familiar with censorship and safeguarding issues. She attended a meeting with other artists in lieu of accounts being rendered unfindable and works being removed as they contained female perceived nipples, which went against the user policies on Instagram platforms in 2019. This is all explained in an article on artnews.net by Maximiliano Duron. Similarly, an article written by Antoinette Radford, published by the BBC on the 25th of March 2023, covers issues of artistic censorship. A group of school children was shown Michelangelo's David, and a parent complained that their child was exposed to pornography. Yet, Michelangelo's David is considered one of the world's greatest works of art. Much like David, Tompkins' work Fuck Painting 62, despite its artistic sensitivity and cultural relevance, faced backlash from those who felt the subject was inappropriate or brash. However, the decision that the gallery has arrived at is that it is an issue of safeguarding, so the images will not be shown during my presentation today. The Indecent Displays Control Act 1981 states that if any indecent matter is publicly displayed, the person making the display and any person causing or permitting the display to be made is guilty of an offense. This is one of the many reasons why I cannot show you Betty Tompkins' work. As I cannot show you Tompkins' work, I have amalgamated many images of nudity that have been displayed in the National Gallery over the years. The collection includes segments from Degas, Renoir, Cadmus, and Titian, all taken out of context. This illustrates that when nudity used for the sake of conveying a poignant message is in an art piece, the meaning is changed. This is why I believe that people criticize Betty Tompkins' work. They aren't understanding the bigger picture. Tompkins' work is created by and for the female gaze, whereas the work of Degas and Titian present in the National Gallery is created by the male gaze and for the male gaze by men. A term coined by feminist Laura Mulvey in the 1970s, a prominent film critic, she used this phrase to denote ideas around toxic masculinity. These pieces of artwork were voyeuristic. They were created for men to look at women's bodies in public without shame or judgment. Conversely, Tompkins' work was created with a powerful message about reducing the shame felt about intimacy and body image. Yet her series, Some Sex, Lots of Talking, cannot be shown during my presentation, and you'll be free to go and locate the paintings I have shown you now around the gallery throughout the day. The artwork I will be focusing on is called Fuck Painting. It was displayed at Gavlak Gallery in Los Angeles as part of a series of hyper-realistic acrylic on canvas black and white images, all of which sharing the common theme of genitalia and intercourse. The series was entitled Some Sex, Lots of Talking. The title alone showed the public that Tompkins wanted to destigmatize the practice of talking about sex and intimacy. It also looked at the way women's bodies are viewed through different lenses. She began the series in 1969, and according to the official press release, some feminists of the time rejected her work due to the pornographic source materials. They argued that it was insensitive. However, many others see it as empowering and deeply ironic, whilst drawing attention to how women are exploited by the industry. Fuck Painting number 62 shows penetrative intravaginal intercourse, However, unless you knew what you were looking at, it's just grey forms linked in the middle of the frame. The viewer is forced to confront what they see. There are no identifying human features about the piece other than genitalia. It becomes more relatable and less personal, yet retains this sense of intimacy and closeness purely from the composition of the forms. During my attempts to research Fuck Painting 62 and Betty Tompkins herself, I encountered several smooth wall warnings and blockages while using the computers at college. Whilst I do understand why my institution itself has decided to make this inaccessible, the content warnings were illogical. The description of why each Google search was blocked was labeled explicit content and pornography. However, I agree that a 12-year-old should not have access to Betty Tompkins' work. I do not agree that it was correct to label it pornography, even though the series Fuck Paintings is based upon pornography that her husband ordered in the 1960s. Betty Tompkins' work is provocative. It shows women as beautiful, powerful, and helps the viewer see sex and nudity as normalized. The series of work shows intercourse, reclined nude female bodies and genitals, a common theme in Betty Tompkins' portfolio. She has created a series of work with this as a backdrop, all with the intent to share her message of inclusivity, especially with her piece, Girl on Girl Painting, to update the social narrative and to create an avid women's culture. I selected Fuck Painting 62 from her series Some Sex, Lots of Talking, because I have always been very aware of feminist issues. I am a proud queer 18-year-old intersectional feminist. Over the last few years in the news, I have seen women being forced to remove hijabs in France, the demonization of trans youth in America, the Pulse nightclub shooting, and recently Mahsa Amini's death. This has started a movement of women supporting each other in the right to wear what makes them comfortable. If Betty Tompkins' work shocks or causes discomfort for a few seconds, but sparks a longer conversation about the expression of identity, femininity, sensuality, and sexuality, then that discomfort was worth it. Some Sex, Lots of Talking is a visual education in what it is like to be human. It is imperative that Betty Tompkins' work is displayed in galleries and art museums. This is the setting it was designed for. Artwork packed away in boxes and in back rooms does not benefit anyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Difficult to follow your talk without seeing the images. We all accept that. But you put this image in front of us. Can you give us some sense from your perspective what it's like walking around the National Gallery today?
Well, I've been to the gallery a few times. This isn't my first time coming. I was incredibly unfortunate to be able to go last year with my friend who competed previously. She did an incredible job and we're very proud of her. But seeing the gallery again today from the perspective of having seen Tompkins' work previously, I found it deeply upsetting, despite how beautiful and compassionate some of the pieces of art are, and these real, intrinsic familial relationships that you can see in some pieces. Even some of these have been plucked from some of the most beautiful and poignant paintings I've seen in my entire life. And having been to the Louvre and several other galleries like the Tate, it's an incredible experience. But it's also really difficult to see some of the ways that women are presented in a society that refuses to accept a woman's power or sexuality being used as a force of good, especially with a lot of the oppression that queer artists have had to face as of late and historically. And being from that sort of community myself, I feel a very deep personal connection to the pieces.
Thank you.
Thank you.